Okay, so this is Autodesk Inventor when we start it, and we have our splash screens here. We're not going to use the splash screen, so we're going to go ahead and close that. You'll notice that the initial page is blank, so we need to go ahead and make a file in here. Fundamental understanding Inventor is that part and assembly files are the two main types of files in Inventor that you'll be working with. You can imagine a keyboard. So if you've ever taken apart a keyboard, it's like every key is its own piece of plastic. And then there's like a frame that holds all of those keys in place, okay? In Inventor, a part file would be one key, okay? Some of the keys are going to be identical, some are going to be slightly differently shaped. You'd have a number of part files, and then what you would do is you'd open an assembly file and you'd put all of those part files together virtually, right, as a 3D model, and you basically put them together into one thing. Okay, that's the idea with an assembly and a part file. You have to understand the difference, all right? That's fundamental to Inventor. All right, so we're gonna start in part files, then we're gonna move to assembly files, all right? So let's go ahead and open a part file. Now there's a couple different ways to make new files in Inventor. One is this new button right here, okay? And you'll see that you don't have a whole lot of options, new or import CAD files. You can go to the file menu and go to new like that, okay? Or you can go to this button at the very top of the screen that my mouse is on up here, and you can click the down arrow next to it, okay? This is the quickest way to get to these options, all right? And then click part. Okay, so we're creating a new part. Okay, in the same way that like the two sets of basic facts are, one, that part files are individual pieces of something that you put together in an assembly file, right? Okay, if you've ever taken apart a pen is a good example, right? A part file would be each little piece of plastic, the assembly is the whole pen, right? So the thing you have to understand once you're in a part file is that there are two modes in Inventor. There's a two-dimensional drawing mode, okay? And we use two-dimensional drawings and then we apply three-dimensional features to them. Okay, so we draw in 2 dimensions, then we apply a 3-dimensional feature, okay? Now today we're gonna be focusing just on 2-dimensional drawing, okay? But please don't think that's the last thing. I honestly have had students that I've looked at their work like a week later and they never understood the 3-dimensional part of it and they're just drawing in 2 dimensions. I'm kind of confused. So understand right at the get-go that when we draw in 2 dimensions, that's not the 3-dimensional modeling portion, all right? Okay. So let's take a look at the interface here and let's kind of see what we see here. We have the 3D cube right here on the right. So let's start on the right here. This 3D cube, this is how we're going to rotate things in 3D space. Okay, we don't grab the actual object, we rotate it using this cube. All right. You can't really operate Inventor without a mouse. Okay, the wheel on your mouse is going to zoom in and zoom out. Also by clicking the wheel, so pushing down the wheel, that's how you're going to grab stuff and pan around. So to pan just means to move stuff right and left, right? On the right here, we have the zoom all button. So this area right here, we have the zoom all button. Okay, that's a very important button I'm going to talk about in a couple minutes. Okay, in the top we have a ribbon. Okay, this is called the ribbon right here, right? And then basically the ribbon gets changed by tabs just above it. Okay, the main tabs that we're going to be on are 3D model and sketch. Okay, those are the two that we're going to be on. They're the first two in a part file. Okay, then finally we have this browser bar right here on the left. The browser bar is not a mystery. Okay, each time you create a sketch, it's represented on the browser bar. Okay, and then when you create a 3D feature from the sketch is contained in the 3D feature. Okay, this was a really common way to represent things in Windows computers a while back. It's kind of gone away as a paradigm in the Windows computing environment. But like as a way to organize things, but it's kind of just like a file structure basically, just like folders and files basically. Okay, we'll take a look at it. All right, a couple things that people get confused by in the Autodesk Inventor environment is that, one is that this ribbon disappears. So there's a button right in the middle here, it's like an oval, okay? And basically if I keep clicking it, this ribbon will go to different modes, okay? All the way from totally gone to totally back, okay? And if I just keep clicking it, it will cycle through all of those modes, okay? That's one thing that people get confused on. The other thing that people get confused on is when stuff starts to be missing, okay? Things get dragged around. Oops, things get dragged around. okay? Things go missing, okay? Things don't look right, right? And then all of a sudden they get to this interface that's like completely empty, okay? All right, and they sit down, they're like, what is going on, all right? So let's take a look at how we get this interface back, all right? So one thing is you have to be in a file, right? So we make our part file. Okay, the other thing is we get the ribbon back by clicking that middle bar, okay? And the last thing is we go to the View tab and we click on User Interface, okay? And this user interface, what we get there is that's weird. Sorry, it was this. So in your user interface, we can go to Model, and that's the browser bar, formerly called the browser bar. Okay, and we can double click the top of it to get it back. Okay, we want to have that browser bar open. All right. Boy, that was confusing. That's new. Okay, that used to be called the browser bar. Now it's called Model. So there you go. I was confused there. All right. Okay, so we're inside this part file, and let's go ahead and get started drawing. Okay, so we're in 3D model here, all right? So the first thing you're gonna do in any part file is you have to create a 2D sketch, all right? And you have to decide where that 2D sketch is going to live. So up on the left here, you see this Start 2D Sketch button. Okay, so you're gonna click that, and immediately your mouse is going to change. You'll notice that that right next to your pointer is a little like pen with a piece of paper. There's a little icon next to it. And this kind of imaginary set of planes like shows up, right? Okay, so essentially what we have to do is we have to choose one of the two-dimensional planes in the 3D space for our sketch to live on, all right? Now in this case it doesn't really matter because we're making like a simple drawing, all right? But if you're drawing a bunch of parts, it really does kind of matter, okay? So you want to kind of think about its orientation in 3D space. It matters once you start to assemble the parts, all right? It's not unrecoverable though, okay, to be honest with you. So you can recover from it. So just choose one. I'm going to choose the XZ plane and click. Okay, so when I clicked there, it automatically went into sketch mode, okay? So remember I talked about there are two different modes, okay? One's 3D mode, one's sketch mode. Okay, notice that I have this big green button right here that says Finish Sketch. Okay, so if I go ahead and I make a simple sketch here, like make just a rectangle, so I'm going to make a rectangle, I'm going to dimension it, and I'm going to go through all these in just a second, all right? I'm going to dimension it, and then finally when I'm all done, I'm going to click Finish Sketch, okay? And now I'm back out into 3D mode. Notice how this browser, this thing never left, right? But there's, see the grid line that was there? Do you see that line that was down there before? Okay, that was how I knew I was in sketch mode, right? Now let's say I want to get back into sketch mode. Okay, I just go ahead over to the browser bar here, this model bar, and I double click sketch one. So I double click it, and notice now I'm back in sketch mode, right? See how there's like this line going down the center, there's the grid line, right? And so I can go in and out of sketch mode. You have to really understand that there are two different modes, all right? I know I'm kind of driving it in the ground here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and delete this for now. All right, so the next thing we have to do is, another thing that people run into when they first start is when you first create a part, the very first thing you should do is save it, all right? And I kind of waited this first time till I was in sketch mode to show you the error that a lot of people get confused by. So a lot of times what people do is they'll be in sketch mode. They'll go save as and then save as, okay? And they'll get this, you cannot save part 2 in sketch mode. We'd like to exit sketch mode to continue saving. The answer is yes, yeah, you do want to, okay? So basically you can't save when you're in sketch mode. So you click OK. It automatically exits you out of sketch mode, all right? And then you save the part. Okay, so we're going to call this basic 2D drawing. Okay, we're going to click save. All right, so very first thing when you open a part file, save it. In our case, we need to save to the D drive because that's the drive that doesn't get overwritten on the computers. All right, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Okay, so we went ahead and saved it. Now notice that we're back out of sketch mode. We know that we're not in sketch mode, 1, because we're not on the sketch tab. 2, we don't see the green button over here that says finish sketch mode. And 3, we don't see any grid lines on our drawing area. Okay, so we know we're not in sketch mode, all right? So we're gonna go ahead and double click sketch 1 to get back into it. All right, now what we're gonna do, guys, the main point of this today is that you guys are gonna just practice 2D drawing, all right? 2D drawing in Inventor is a little bit different, as it is in all Autodesk products, all right? In your regular drawing programs, you click and drag. In Autodesk, you click, move the mouse, and then click again, okay? So for example, with the line, we're going to click, drag the mouse, and then click again, okay? Everybody see that? Now, notice that it sticks, right? It keeps wanting to draw a line here, all right? Well, what if I just want one line? That's good, okay? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna keep holding down the mouse, okay? And then I'm gonna release on whatever option I want to go on, okay? In this case, I'm gonna release on OK. That's it, okay? So it's a click, hold, and then release on whatever option you want, all right? Okay, the main thing in 2D sketching is you must immediately dimension everything, okay? Please do not think that you can do a bunch of drawing without dimensioning it. What will happen is that you'll do tons and tons and tons of work. You'll get to the point where you want to assemble stuff and then nothing will fit with each other because one thing will be a centimeter big and one thing will be a meter big, okay? They will be totally different sizes. You must dimension, all right? So immediately upon drawing something, I want you to go ahead and add a dimension if possible, all right? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and, let me just go back. So to dimension, we click the dimensioning tool and all we're gonna do is click, move the mouse up, and then left click again, okay? Then we go ahead and put in the amount. Let's say we want 4 inches. Let's say we actually want 20 inches, okay? We hit enter, there's 20 inches, right? Now what happened was it went off the screen, right? That's a problem, okay? Because now we can't see the end of it. So how are we gonna see the whole line, right? Well, how we're gonna see it is 2 different ways. One, we can wheel mouse out to zoom out like that. We can also, if it's way like this and we just don't even see it, sometimes when we dimension things, if I had made it, if it was a rectangle and I made it 20 feet, right, we wouldn't even be able to see it. It'd be way out on the program. So the quickest way to get to that is to click View All, okay? We click View All on the right here, okay? And that basically takes everything we've drawn and puts it onto the screen again. So if you get lost, if you don't know where your drawing is and you just know it's somewhere, right, because you just drew it, but you can't see it and you can't find it, okay, you click View All on the right there and it will come back into frame, all right? Okay, so that's the line drawing. The next thing we're gonna do is the spline, okay? So spline is right here. Spline, we're gonna forego dimensioning, to be honest with you. The spline is kind of free form, so it's a way for you to create kind of organic curves. It is a little bit tough to dimension. You can dimension it in a couple ways, but we're not going to this time. So the spline, you set the spline tool, you click, 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 okay? At the very end, again, you right click, hold the right click, so you mouse down on the right click button, and then you release on the cancel. Whoops, not release on the cancel, release on the OK. All right, so we're gonna go back to spline. Okay, there we go. Right click and release on the create. I apologize, release on the create. All right, now with the spline, notice that we can't adjust this spline because we're still in the spline tool. You have to right click again and click OK or cancel, okay? That gets us out of the spline tool. Do you see how it unhighlighted? Then what we can do is we basically drag these dots, okay, these points, and that will adjust the spline, okay? Okay, so we can basically make organic shapes like that. All right, I'm gonna unzoom there, I'm gonna zoom out. You can move things around just by clicking and moving them. You can delete them by highlighting them and clicking the delete button. Okay, the next one we're gonna do is the circle. For the circle, you're gonna choose where you want your center. You're gonna click, move the circle out, click again. And then then we have to exit the circle tool. So we have to right mouse down and then release on OK or cancel. And then we're gonna dimension the circle. So we're gonna click on the dimensioning tool. We can either dimension, and we're gonna click on the circle itself, not the center in this case. We're going to pull it out, and this is going to give us the diameter. Let's say that we want a 40-inch diameter. Okay. All right, so it's pretty large and in charge. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to ellipse. Ellipse is a click, move the mouse, and notice that it's half the length. So we click on the center of the ellipse, we move it out half the length, we click again, and then you won't see anything. You have to pull up, okay, and then you're going to define the height of the ellipse. You're going to click again, and then once again right mouse down and release on the OK, and then we're going to dimension. Dimensioning on the ellipse is odd because basically what we're doing is we can dimension the height, right? Let's say we want it 10 inches. Okay, and then we can dimension the half the length, and we're going to make that 20 inches. Okay. All right. The next thing we're going to do here is that we're going to do an arc. So an arc, mainly we use a 3-point arc. So we click, move the mouse, click, and then pull up and click again. Right click OK. And then to dimension that, we're going to click on dimension. And you basically give, so interestingly enough, an arc is part of a circle, right? So you're going to actually give the dimension of the circle that would create the arc. That's what it is, okay? So we're going to put in 75, right? So essentially, if we continued that arc all the way around, that would be a circle with a dimension of 75 inches. Or sorry, not dimension, a diameter of 75 inches. Okay, next one. We're going to do a rectangle. Okay, so rectangle, we're just going to do 2 of these here. We're going to do the polygon and the rectangle. So the rectangle, we're going to go click, move the mouse, click. We're going to click on the dimensioning tool, click, move the mouse, click. We're going to say 100 inches this time, click, move the mouse, click, 100 inches also to make a square. Okay, right now what I want to call your attention to, so I'm going to right click, and then I can right click and then just right click again if I want on that heads up display as well. What I want to call your attention to right now is not something I want you to focus on this time, but I want to call your attention to the constraints. Okay, so I right clicked an empty area and I'm clicking show all constraints. What we can look at on this square is that a square is a collection of lines that's defined as a rectangle by 2-dimensional constraints. So if you just connected 4 lines and made a quadrilateral, it wouldn't necessarily be a rectangle. So how do you make a shape that it behaves as a rectangle would be expected to behave? So what you do and what Inventor does is it automatically applies, for example, here these 2 lines are marked as parallel. These 2 lines are marked as parallel, right? This corner, these 2 lines are marked as perpendicular. Okay, and by applying this set of constraints, and then finally this line is marked as horizontal, locked in with the x-axis. Okay, so by combining those constraints together, you get a quadrilateral that behaves like a rectangle. Okay, so that's all we're doing there. You can make your own rectangle just by applying 2D constraints. All right. Okay, today don't focus on that. I just wanted to make you aware that it was there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do here is polygon. So basically you click polygon, we're going to make a 6-sided figure. We click done. Whoops, I didn't click, sorry. You do it and then click done. So click, drag it out, click again. Okay, click done. And then we're going to click on the dimensioning tool. Whoops, dimensioning tool. Oh, what is going on? It's surprising. Oh, it is, isn't it? Good call. Okay, I'm going to right click and do hide all constraints here. We're going to go back to the dimensioning tool. Wow, nice call. Thank you. Yes. So basically what I had was I had all the constraints on it. Basically I was going over the constraints. It wasn't letting me select the lines properly. Okay, so I clicked dimensioning tool. I clicked on one of the lines, and basically it's these are made to be have equivalent length sides, right? So that's the definition of them. So so these n-sided figures in Inventor, basically by setting the setting one side, you're setting the length for all sides at one time. Okay? All right, so that is the polygon. The last thing we're going to see here is the fillet. Okay, so basically fillet rounds off corners. I want to say that in 2018 there seems to be a glitch. It could be a feature. It seems like a glitch to me. So basically what we can say here is that this the fillet tool, we're going to do 5 inches because it's a fairly big figure. Okay, so basically if I highlight over this corner on this rectangle, you see it kind of preview. I would say that as far as I can tell, you want to make sure that that's the fillet you want before you click. Okay, so notice if I click there, I get these nice rounded corners on my rectangle. Okay. All right, so that's going to be our first thing, guys. So we're going to go ahead and practice these 2D drawing tools. Good luck.